Well, good morning. It's great to see everyone here this morning. Great to see such a great crowd. And I just want to, if I didn't get a chance to come talk to you before services, I just want to welcome you so much to the Caneyville Church of Christ. And we are tickled to death to have you here and want to invite you back to every opportunity that you can be here with us. I look forward all week to being back here with my brethren, to worship with you, to study with you. And I want you to know that I take it as the greatest honor that could possibly be that I get to be the one that gets up in the pulpit every Sunday morning here at Caneyville. I appreciate that and the confidence, and it's honestly, I love what I do at Drake's, but I love what I do here more because I really do love the Lord, I love the kingdom, and I want to thank you for your willingness to help me and prayers for me. The encouragement that y'all have given me in the past few weeks has been extraordinary in your actions of what you do and your prayers, and I just want to thank you for that because it never, my wildest dreams I've ever thought that I'd become a preacher, yet here I am. And I know my mama didn't think that. I know it's Mother's Day, and I know my mama didn't think that, especially certain times of my life. She probably thought I was going to be the furthest thing there was from a preacher. But my mom, from me as a young age, instilled in me truth. And I'm still a mama's boy. That's me and I'm about Davy's age in that picture right there. And that's me and my mama. And I talk to my mama every day, every other day. And my mom, and I'll probably forward her this so I can be on the best list, because I know my other siblings ain't preaching this morning. But my mom instilled in me from a young age as my Bible class teacher. I remember my mom being my Bible class teacher at Northfield Boulevard. And I remember that. I remember her instilling in me the importance of what a Christian man should be one day. Granted, I had my father to be able to watch that, but my mother was the one that taught me. But my mother was the one that instilled in me, this is what you should do. And the relationship, and I'm sure the mothers here can that have sons can relate to the relationship between a mother and a son is a close one. I've got a relationship with the girls, my girls, that's different than what Amelia does, but the relationship that Davey has with Amelia is totally different. He loves me, but he makes sure he tells me he loves Mama more. But that's all right, because Gwen says she likes me a little bit better, so we're even. But the role of a mother is so important. When we look at what a mother does, what a mother can do, it's something that we have to take into awe and to respect. And when you find the example of a good mother in the Scriptures, it's something that we need to try to, if possible, replicate. Because as many as there is good mamas, there's some bad mamas out there. But there we have examples in the Scriptures of a good, godly mother. And I think Ruth is that example. If you would flip over your Old Testaments to the book of Ruth, that's what we concentrate in our study at this morning, is about Ruth. I think Ruth is a really good example because when we are introduced to Ruth in the beginning of the chapter, Ruth is a widow. Ruth's not a mother. So this isn't a lesson of, hey, here's a mother. She's always been a great mother from the beginning, and boom, here you go. You need to be just like her. Ruth worked to become the mother that she became, as we see in the end of the chapter. That you take a woman who begins from humble beginning, from almost destitution, to becoming the great-grandmother of the king. The king. And when I say the king, I'm talking about David. The man that was called after God's own heart. You don't think she didn't have a part in instilling that? So what can we learn from Ruth? Well, if we look at Ruth, in Ruth chapter 1, Ruth possessed a heart of loyalty. Look at, if you will, with me in the book of Ruth, chapter 1 and verse 16. We see Ruth there with her mother-in-law, Naomi. As we see, Naomi is widowed. Ruth is widowed. And we see there in verse 14, it says, they lifted their voice and wept again. And Ophrah kissed her mother-in-law, but Ruth clung to her. She said, behold, your sister-in-law has gone back to her people and to her gods. Return after your sister-in-law. But Ruth said, do not urge me to leave you or to turn back from following you. From where you go, I will go. Where you lodge, I will lodge. Where your people shall be my people, and your God, my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. Thus may the Lord do to me worse, if anything, but death parts you from me. But when she saw she was determined to go with her, she was no more. Now, if we look at Ruth, Ruth was married to a man that was from Bethlehem, and he ends up dying, and they are left widows. What does her sister-in-law do? Well, I'm going to go back to my family. I'm going to go back to them, to the people that I know. What would that, if Ruth had decided to do that too, where would that have left Naomi? Alone? An elderly woman without care? A true widow. But we see a different spirit in Ruth. We see loyalty. We see that she clings to her family. Now, later on in the lesson, we're going to do some comparisons as to what we can learn from Ruth. But I want you to think about that thought right there. Ruth possesses a loyal heart. Loyalty is a thing in today's day and time that is many times overlooked, taken for granted. You think loyalty, we think that our friends are loyal to us. We hope that our family is loyal to us. Ruth exemplified that. Could she have went and followed her sister-in-law? Sure, she could have. Would that have been the easiest path? Yeah, it would have been. But she makes a stand, and she says, whether you go, I go. Your God shall be my God. I ain't leaving you behind. I'm going to be different, which is what we're called to be as Christians anyways, right? Which we're going to build on that here in a minute, but I just wanted to keep this thought in your mind. She was different because she was loyal. Loyalty is what you want in a mother, right? If everybody else has got their back to you, you know who ain't got their back to you? Your mama. Mine did anyways. Ruth exemplified that. Now, to the mothers that are here, or the one-day mothers that are here, that's something that we can grow on. Yeah, you're probably loyal now. You wouldn't be here this morning. But what can you do to be more so? Us fathers, us husbands, us sons that's in the room, what can we do to help gain that loyalty? What can we do to bridge that? We'll talk about that here in a little bit. Another thing with Ruth that makes her different, that helps her in her path of growing as a mother, is that she provided care. She provided care to Naomi. If you look over just in the next chapter, in chapter 2 in verse 17, it says, so she gleaned in the field until evening. And then she beat out what she had gleaned, and it was about an ephah of barley. These two women have no one to take care of them. They have, not listed anyways, many material possessions to them. What does Ruth do? She gets to work. She had made that promise to Naomi in chapter 1. I'm going to be loyal to you. I'm going to take care of you. Where you go, I go. I got your back. So Ruth, being younger, what does she do? She goes and collects barley. Now, collecting barley back then isn't what it is now. If me and Drago want to go fire up our case, our international, we ain't fancy enough to have cases yet, are we? We got those internationals. Let's set that straight. Ours is just a little bit different. But if I went and fired up my combine I've got, me and Drago, we could probably provide, if you got barley or wheat around here, in the span of a couple hours, we could go thrash enough wheat or barley to be able to feed this whole congregation for a while over. You agree with that? If we can keep them running long enough, I'll speak for mine on that anyways. We can keep mine running long enough. But if you were to go and to take and thrash barley or wheat or whatever type of grain back then, that was hard physical labor. You're going to have to go out there with a sickle and cut it, and then go on the threshing floor and beat it, raise the chaff, let the chaff roll away so that you could get to the seed. That which, for kids, bread does not come from the store, right? You got to take the flour, but the flour's got to be processed in the first place because it comes from the seed to be able to provide food. She didn't wait for a handout. She said, I'm going to be different. I made this promise to you to loyalty. I'm going to get to work. I'm going to stand out. I'm going to follow through. I'm going to help provide. We also see that she obeys Naomi's voice. Now, both of these women, as we said, they don't really have very many material possessions. So Ruth is working in the field of Boaz, and we'll get to Boaz in a second. But when it says in chapter 3 and verse 1, it says, Then Naomi, her mother-in-law, said to her, My daughter, shall I not seek security for you, that it may be well with you? Now, is not Boaz our kinsman, with whose maid you were? Behold, he winnows barley on the threshing floor tonight. Wash yourself, therefore, anoint yourself, and put on your best clothes, and go down to the threshing floor. But do not make yourselves known to the man until he has finished eating and drinking. It shall be when he lies down, you shall go notice to the place where he lies, and you shall go and cover his feet and lie down, and he will tell you what he shall do. And she said, All that you say, I will do. She sees opportunity in Boaz as a sense of security, of a sense of leadership. We see that he owns property, right? He owns the field where they're thrashing the barley. But she obeys Naomi's voice. It's Naomi's suggestion that she goes and does this. Now, could she have said, "Well, I'm an independent woman. I can do what I want to. You ain't gonna tell me what to do. You're my mother-in-law for my husband that's gone. I don't have to listen to you." What does she do? She has a different spirit than most. Ruth is a very, very, very unique individual. She listens to the voice of someone older, someone wiser, and takes that into consideration. And because of that, shows that she doesn't have arrogance, but is willing to learn and take from someone that is older. Is that something we can learn from? You better believe it. We have children. We look at our mother. They're older than us. They bore us into this world. You don't think they know a little bit more about this life than what I do? Yep. You don't think that they ain't got the best intentions for us? Most of them do. Naomi had that for Ruth. When she tells her to do this, Ruth takes it into consideration and obeys Naomi's voice, therefore showing her humility, her eagerness, and her love for following through with what Naomi said. But she also received the reward. Now, when we think about the reward in this instance is being married to Boaz. But when we see in chapter 4, we see that she is eventually is able to take Boaz as her husband, and because of that, she is able to be with child, and from there produces eventually the king of Israel. We see there chapter 3 and verse 17, it says the woman gave him a name, saying, a son has been born to Naomi, and they named him Obed. He is the father of Jesse, the father of David. Now, if she hadn't possessed a loyal heart, if she hadn't provided care, if she hadn't listened to the voice of Naomi, she would have never received the reward of being with a loving husband, a faithful husband, and being able to have the blessings of children, or being able to be the grandmother of a king. Don't think attitude's got a little bit to do with that? Humility doesn't have a little bit to do with that? Ruth doesn't begin as the woman that we see at the end of chapter 4. Ruth doesn't. She begins from humble beginnings. But because of her willingness to learn, because of her willingness to take into consideration, she becomes a godly mother. Now, how can we take what Ruth has done into application into our own lives? Ruth's been dead a long time. How can we be a Ruth in the 21st century? How can we take that into consideration? How can we apply that to us? Well, for us, we can take the same principles from Ruth and apply it to us. And the fact where she was loyal to Naomi, we've got to be loyal to God. Is that going to be the easiest thing? No, absolutely not. You know, I have got friends this morning who are not members of the church, who have already this morning sent me pictures of them in their boat on the way to Lake Malone to go fishing. Hope they catch a bunch. But I'm going to be like Joshua and say, as for me and my house, we're going to be right here on Sunday morning. Why? Because my allegiance doesn't lie with things of the world. I am loyal to one thing and one thing alone, and that is Christ, the Son of God, who died on the cross for me, so that I might be able to have a hope of heaven eternal. Now, is that always the most popular choice to make? Nope. Is it always the easiest thing to get 4 kids wrangled up in the morning and get them to go to church in the morning? I'll tell you, this morning was not easy. Little Davy Crockett did not want to cooperate in getting dressed this morning. Is it always easy? No. Is life going to be easy? No. But when we make the stance that says, I don't care what the world says, I'm going to have the spirit of Naomi and I'm going to be loyal because this is what's important to me. I've made this a priority in my life. And because of that, I want to instill in my children that this is what the priority is. I'm going to remain loyal. Because no matter what happens, I put God above all. I put God above my family, above my hobbies. It doesn't matter what anybody else does. I'm going to take into consideration what God says, what God has instructed me to do. We see in Mark chapter 8 and verse 34, he tells us that. He says, and he summoned the crowd with his disciples, and he said to them, if anyone wishes to come after me, he must deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me. For whoever wishes to save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake, the gospel will save it. For what does a man profit to gain the whole world and forfeit his soul? What will a man give in exchange for his soul? Those friends that are going fishing, they show where their loyalties lie. It's not with the one true King. If I'm in the ditches of a spiritual battle, who do I want fighting next to me? Do you want a soldier that's only there part of the time, that's not being as loyal as they should? Or do you want someone that says, hey, I'm right there with you, brother. I'm just as loyal as you are, and I'm going to do what I can to help you get through this battle. Because life is a battle. Is life easy? No, it ain't for me anyways. If y'all found out a way to make it easier, I'd like to know. As far as I can tell, it ain't going to be. It ain't going to be easy until we get to heaven. In the meantime, I need you and you need me, and we need to have the loyalty to the one King. Because He's the only one that's going to help us get us through. And we can achieve that by following the example of Ruth. We must also obey His voice. And that goes also into what we talked about with being loyal. That godly mothers are going to instill the voice of God and those qualities of being loyal unto their children. You know, Amelia, as y'all know, or some of y'all visitors probably don't know, but Amelia, we homeschool our kids. And I think Amelia does an outstanding job with it. And do I want my kids to be book smart? Sure. My mom homeschooled me. I'm probably the most homeschool kid you'd ever meet. You probably would have never known that with his many Dukes of Hazzard trucks and stuff and everything I had growing up. But then I wasn't your typical homeschool kid, I don't guess. But out of all the things my mom taught me and my education, to make sure that I was prepared to go to Western and get a bachelor's degree, and she did a good job of that. As much as she instilled in that of me, my mother made sure that I knew who Jesus was. Above all, it's fine to know about all the different battles of World War II, or know about the Civil War, or know about mitosis and meiosis and prokaryotes and eukaryotes and all that you learn in biology or whatever. That's good and fine, but it don't mean anything if you don't know who the Lord is. I want my wife to teach my children all they can, but the most important thing I want my wife to do is to teach my children to love the Lord. And to love the Lord, you are going to obey His voice. Now, that goes beyond mothers. Am I, as a father, I'm to be the head of the household, right? Are you doing, I'm talking to the men out there, are you doing what you can do to support the woman in your life, the mother in your life, whoever it is, to say, hey, our goal in this family is to obey His voice. We're going to read. We're going to follow Him. We're going to be at services. We're going to put priorities first. Yeah, it's great we got homework. Yeah, it's great that we got all these school activities. But one thing's for sure, we're going to have our Bible lessons done and we're going to be ready to go to church. Because as for me and my house, we're going to serve the Lord. What is it? The Proverbs writer, we all know this verse. But the Proverbs writer speaks about this. Tells it in simple English to us. In Proverbs chapter 22 and verse 6, he says, train up a child in the way that he shall go, for when he is old, he will not depart from it. If you instill that from a young age, statistically, they are going to stay with it. I'm working on a sermon right now. It's got a lot of data behind it, so I'm really trying to make it as good as I can. But I've got a sermon coming up in the next few weeks, hopefully, that talks about the percentage, and there's an institute that has done the studies on this, as to the likelihood of your children staying faithful Christians based off the participation of the father and based off the participation of the mother. And let me tell you, parents, we got it stacked against us. It takes leadership from you as a father. It takes leadership from you as the mother, and a combined force that says, hey, our goal on this earth is to help our kids get to heaven. They go to Western, they go to UK, they go to UT, that's fine, that's great. They became a great ball player, that's great. It don't matter if they don't make it to heaven. What am I doing to help them know that they need to obey His voice? Because a godly mother, a godly father is going to do what they can to instill that voice in them. You know, Paul talked about this with Timothy. In 2 Timothy chapter 2 and verse 1, or chapter 1 and verse 5, I'm sorry. It says, "For I am mindful of the sincere faith within you, which first dwelt in your grandmother Lois and your mother Eunice, and I am sure that it is in you as well." Grandparents, he just talked to you. Is it important to instill? You better believe it. We know who Timothy is to this day in 2025. You don't think you can have an influence on your grandkids? Think again. Now, there are grandparents here this morning that I see week in and week out bring their grandchildren to church. And I just want to tell you, I appreciate that. There are a lot of people that would say, you know, my time of raising kids is over. I've been through that. But I want you to know, Caleb Smithson appreciates it. God appreciates it. Because it shows that the Lord is so special and so important to you that you want your grandchildren to know His voice. And I promise you, even though it might not be easy, the efforts that you are taking to have them exposed to the truth and the teaching of the truth does not go unnoticed. I want to tell you I appreciate that. Because it made a difference to Timothy. You know, when we read 2 Timothy there talking about his grandmother and mother, we don't see his father listed. We don't know who Timothy's father is. But you know who is listed? His grandmother and his mother. Because even though, for all we know, that his dad was out of the picture, Mama and Grandmama made sure that they knew who the truth was. That he knew, that Timothy as a young man knew who Christ was. And because of that, he becomes right-hand man to Timothy. And because of that, countless people are saved. Why? From the efforts of a grandmother and a mother. Don't count yourself out, ladies. Yes, your husband, maybe you're here and your husband's not a Christian. Your husband, you maybe don't have a husband. You're raising the children or grandchildren by yourself. Don't think your work goes unnoticed by God. Lois and Eunice go to prove that that's the truth. Enough that it was recorded by Paul. It's why it's so important that we take raising our children in the Lord seriously. It's the greatest responsibility you'll ever have, is raising your children that they follow Christ. I remember the day I was baptized. It was a Sunday morning. I was sitting on the left. The church building we went to was kind of an odd setup. It had the two set of pews like here, and then it had two sets of smaller pews outside of that. It was a bigger church building. And I was sitting over on that far side, and I remember I come up on the left-hand side and came forward on Sunday morning and met my daddy up front. And I look over. I told my dad, of course, Dad knew what was going on. I remember sitting there, and I remember my mom sat up on the second row. And I looked back at my mama, and my mama's crying. Because her baby had decided that he was going to follow Christ. All those years of her trying to instill that to me had paid off. Now, thankfully, it didn't end there. Thankfully, I have tried to do my best. I'm not perfect by no means, but I'm trying to do my best so that I can baptize my babies one day. That's the ultimate goal for me. Maybe even my grandbabies, if I'm lucky enough to have that. Surely with 4 kids, I'll get some grandbabies. Odds are in my favor anyways. But that's the goal. To teach them to have the attitude of Ruth to obey his voice. Because That is the responsibility of all of us. As we see in Titus chapter 2 and verse 3. He gives instruction there. He says, older women likewise are to be reverent in their behavior, not malicious gossips or enslaved to much wine, teaching what is good, that they may encourage young women to love their husbands and to love their children, to be sensible, pure, workers at home, kind, being subject to their own husbands, so that the word of God will not be dishonored. He's talking to all of us there. He mentions older women. Maybe you don't have any grandchildren. Maybe you don't have any children at all. But you still have a responsibility. You can still have an effect. You can still be a mother figure by showing the love and instruction of the Bible. Remember what Ernest T. Bass said? He said, she's my mother figure. And you're my brother figure, Kevin. Remember that? That's what he said. He looked at Andy. He said, you're my brother figure. There are women that are in the church today who are like mothers to me. Not because I have any blood relation to them, but because of them and their example of how they try to instill Christ in me. I think of a lady in East Tennessee right now, Kathy Douthit. Her husband was an elder of the church and was an elder of the church of the first congregation my dad preached at when I was born. That woman is like a mother to me. Why? Am I related to her? Absolutely not. But because of her having the attitude of Ruth to instill in me what the truth is, I look at her as a mother figure. There are other women. There are women here that I look to as a mother figure because of what you do, your efforts, and I want you to know I appreciate it. Because you are doing what you can to exemplify the attitude of Ruth. To teach your children and to teach my children to obey His voice. That's what we all should be doing. Whether you're man, woman, whoever. You can be a father figure to somebody. You can be a brother figure to somebody. If you exemplify the attitude of Ruth. And say, I'm going to help them learn His voice. Because it's only by doing that, by learning His voice, that we will be able to receive the reward. Just like how Ruth received the reward. Ruth became a mother and was added to the genealogy of Jesus, the Son of God. When we become a Christian, when we have submitted ourselves to Christ and say, yes, I believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, and because of that, I'm going to quit living for Caleb, I'm going to start living for Jesus, and I'm going to have my sins washed away. That's when we are able to be added to the genealogy of Christ, because we are then washed into His family and washed into the blood of Christ, being received into Him and added to the family of God. We see in 1 John chapter 3. 1 John chapter 3 and verse 1, it says, see how great a love that the Father has bestowed on us, that we should be called children of God. Such we are. For this reason the world does not know us, because it did not know Him. We are children of God. What a blessing. That the one that created the universe with the snap of a finger loves me and wants me to be considered a child. That I'm able to receive the reward of Him because of people that took the time to tell me about Jesus. Instilled to me the love of Jesus. Because they had the attitude of Ruth. Because they were loyal. Because they obeyed His voice. Because they wanted to receive the reward. Romans chapter 8. Romans chapter 8 and verse 16. He says the Spirit the Spirit Himself testifies with our spirit that we are children of God, and if children, heirs also, heirs of God and fellow heirs with Christ, if indeed we suffer with Him, that we may be glorified with Him. For I consider that sufferings of this present time are not worthy to be compared with the glory that is revealed to us. That's the reward that awaits us if we are willing to have the attitude of Ruth. So the question we have to ask ourselves is, are we doing that? You know, there's lots of different gifts and great things you can do for your mama. You can come to church with her on Sunday. You can buy her dinner. You can buy her a van. That's what I did this weekend. But ain't nothing greater than you can do for your mother than to try to say, hey, I'm going to follow your example and I'm going to follow God. Because I promise you, if your mama is a Bible-believing Christian that is trying to exemplify the attitude of Ruth, she wouldn't want no other greater blessing, no other greater gift than to see her child follow in the footsteps of Jesus. That's it, to see their child say, I don't want to be of the world, I want to be of Christ. I want to be of Jesus. And greatest of all, living godly all the rest of their lives so that they can be reunited with Ruth and be reunited with Jesus in heaven. Maybe you're here this morning and maybe you haven't been living that attitude of having the attitude of Ruth. Maybe you haven't been putting Jesus first. Only way to put him first is by becoming his. By submitting yourself in repentance to baptism and saying, I want to be different. I want to have my sins washed away. I want to follow Christ because I want to go to heaven. We can make that happen this morning. We have water and garments ready, and I'd be more than glad to baptize you in the blood of Jesus Christ for the remission of your sins. Maybe you're here this morning and you haven't been the example that you needed to be. Maybe you haven't been the mother or father or son or daughter or whatever it is, and the example that you're setting, whether that's in a public matter, private matter, make it right today so that we can all be able to have a home in heaven with him eternal. If there's any need for salvation this morning, come forward, we stand and sing the song select.